press, they have to be very careful. Whether it's even Australia is also an extremely strong market for Microsoft on a relative scale. And if they read news in English, they will get the impression that from the PR agencies which are paying the or pushing articles ghostwritten by them to the newspapers, they will get the impression Microsoft is doing well. Whereas if they actually look at the other publications, they will get a kind of a different picture. But
well, I mean, there's a lot of British culture wants to follow and embrace American culture as well. We got a lot of American shows on TV. There's a lot of American music on radio and all that. But I mean, the other thing to look at as far as trying to gauge if something's popular or not is if you go into a games store and you look at the amount of games. If you look at the section for the PS3, look at the section for the Wii, look at the section for the Xbox, and they're all comparable. They all have a lot of games there, and they've always got people browsing them. They've always got people taking them off the shelf, looking at the covers, reading the covers, taking them up to standing in the queue with games, and that applies to all of them. And it doesn't matter what time of day you go in or what shop it is. The Xbox, as far as I can see, is on par with the others, and it's certainly not a ghost town. It's not a ghost area of any of these shops at any times I've seen them.
Yeah, the Indian market's been removed from the shops at some stage around 2008. They actually had to remove it off the shelves because of lack of demand, and that's a large market. I'm not sure how many people buy consoles there, but we tend to sometimes focus on, especially when it comes to Linux, and this is the reason I have some concern, is because you have all these English-speaking websites, right? And you have these kind of landing points, like adverts or places that check the referral of the browser. And what they tend to attract is people from English-speaking countries, not from places like China. What will happen then is those firms that you know of, like Net Application, it turns out Net Application is using methods very similar to various other, what should we call them? They obviously don't give you real statistics, but they give you some numbers of something. And they use the same very convenient method, which is more of a side effect of what advertisers do when they check, is they pull out the referees, the referrers of the people who browse the web to this website. And obviously what they get is lots of people who speak English and lots of people who happen to use certain browsers coming into the website, and they assume this is a large number of IP addresses. Therefore, they can just check the browser headers and say, oh, well, we don't see lots of Linux here. But do they really check a global thing? And then when you find out what they have in the numbers is they have only like 2% from China. But hold on a second, China is the largest internet population in the world now. How can it be 2%? Obviously, it's not 2%. And this is also why I feel concerned about the consoles and all kinds of things where you look at a very small fragment or a very close to you or a very reflective of what you see segment of the market, but it's not necessarily the full picture. And also that this is why people think Apple is extremely powerful, but if you look in certain countries, it's barely existent.
Well, what we'll do, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to wrap this up by just quickly mention one of the things that I notice is people well, as I say, I used to be a gamer, and I used to game with a lot of different people, and they would have no interest whatsoever in the ethics of a company or what else they do. They judge the console on the console. They judge it on the games that are available, what the games are like, what they're like to play, and the price, and that's it. And people that when they put that hat on, the Xbox seems to perform well enough to capture a lot of people. And from what I can see, it does do that. I mean, setting aside people who have no clue about open or closed, they have no clue about any corruption or tax avoidance, or they've no clue about anything like that. They've no clue about Linux, Windows, anything. They're just looking at purely as a games console, and the Xbox does seem to stand on its own, albeit it might have reliability issues.
Well, I'll close off this console section because I'm sure that people aren't tuning into this TechBytes show just to listen about a console chat. I think it's rather relevant because it's been obviously we just had the Christmas period, and a lot of these consoles will be Christmas presents for people as well as the titles, and obviously the companies involved are relevant.
I thought you were going to say it's relevant because a lot of these Xboxes will be returned by now.
Yeah, thank you, Ron. No, and I think it's relevant because obviously it's involving the companies that we talk about throughout the year. I'll just end on some figures, which although I know some of us are a bit sceptical of, but this sort of balances out what I've been saying about the 360. As I said before, I'm a PS3 user more so than the 360, although I do have both. But this sort of balances things out a little bit after what we've been discussing about the Xbox and how that might be the more popular machine. I would like to chat at some future show about the GPU of the 360 the CPU of the PS3, because there's some very interesting points to be made, and there's certainly been some issues that I've seen and experienced in regards to ported software on the PS3 from the 360 in terms of performance issues, frame skipping, tearing, etc. But that's going to be a subject for another day. Because we're going to now look at some sales figures from Amazon for the Christmas period. Now, before I go through these, I'll stress that Amazon have said it's not representative of the entire festive period. What festive period then they're referring to, we don't know yet. So, and obviously these are the early figures, and there's going to be other companies with other figures that might contradict this. But in a nutshell, the top-selling console-related piece of tech was the PlayStation 3 remote control for the Blu-ray player. Came as a little bit of a surprise, but that took the top spot for the console tech that was selling the most on Amazon.
It's probably a surprise if you pay attention to advertisements and fake articles that they. I apologize, I'm going getting to the topic, but Sony was very explicitly making fun of Microsoft because they knew very well, and they make it very clear that Microsoft had spent $500 million just advertising the Kinect. So you would think that's the only thing that existed, but that's very deceiving, because you would think if you hear more about it, it must be more capable, more potent, more sales, but that's what they try to push by imposed perception. The Sony peripheral in this case, or the remote, has been winning some prizes. I think you've mentioned it before. It was winning some prizes actually.
Yeah, this was. Sorry to interrupt you, Roy. Sorry, I maybe didn't make myself clear. This was the controller for just the Blu-ray player. The Move technology came in considerably higher than the number one spot. Lower, sorry. What I was going to say, though, was that, this was encouraging to me, not so much on the PlayStation 3 front, although it does suggest that there's quite a few people with PS3s out there if a piece of tech for Sony's console can get to number one in the sales. But for me, it seems that possibly we're looking now at a more of a shift or an enthusiastic movement towards the Blu-ray format. It's certainly been lukewarmly received since it was introduced. In terms of titles, in terms of shelf space in stores, and I'm hoping that this is going to be the start of the migration towards Blu-ray, now that a lot of people have 1080 DPI, high definition televisions and that sort of technology.
Really hope not, to be honest. It's quite more of an obsolescence. Any person who knows how things work from experience with all kinds of things like tape cassettes and cassette tapes and things like that would know that the purpose here is to make obsolete the previous generation of storage. It's more of a side effect, but it's also a very appealing proposition to those who want to try and sell you things in the future and ensure the old stuff doesn't quite work anymore. The other thing about Blu-ray is Microsoft is beginning to endorse the thing, or at least it made it kind of necessary, and I found 2 headlines about that a few days ago, and that's a pretty major piece of news, of course, because Microsoft was pushing HD DVD for a matter of like a year, 2 years, I think, with Toshiba, and they now actually make fun of Apple at the same time for ignoring Blu-ray thus far. So
what I would say, Roy, for me personally, the people often draw inference from the new format that comes out. They said the same about DVD from VCD. I remember when Laserdisc first came out, and that died a death. Although I still have my Laserdisc collection, of which I'm very, very, very proud of. But you look at the Blu-ray players. I mean, take the PlayStation 3 for example, which is a Blu-ray player, and people worry about the backwards compatibility of older formats, etc. My